Good morning. It's wonderful to see you here on campus after 2 years of virtual programming. And to everyone who is joining us on Zoom, I want to say welcome to you too. We're glad to have all of you here with us today. I'm Tomiko Brown-Nagin, the Dean of the Harvard Radcliffe Institute, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our annual Gender Conference, this year focused on gender and comedy. Now, some of you may be concerned that I would use these welcoming remarks as my opportunity to start my stand-up career in comedy. But rest assured, I will not do that to you or to myself. From this moment forward, I'll leave the jokes to the professionals. Now, our conference got an appropriate start last night with the stand-up comedy program featuring talented students from the Harvard College Stand-Up Comic Society and the Harvard Undergraduate Feminist Comedy Collective. It was a great evening, including for those of us who joined via Zoom. Today, we'll consider gender and comedy through a series of panels featuring comedians, scholars, and activists. As many of you know, the Radcliffe Institute traces its origins to Radcliffe College, founded in the late 19th century to educate women at a time when they were excluded from Harvard University. Today's institute carries forward that legacy of an enduring commitment to the study of women and gender in society, as well as our dedication to equity, inclusion, and opportunity. Now, the nation has made great strides towards gender equity since the founding of Radcliffe College, but much work remains to be done. In fact, the challenges we still face became even more apparent over the past 2 years. The Me Too movement brought issues of sexual harassment and gender-based violence to the fore, and the pandemic exposed and exacerbated long-standing inequities along lines of gender, as well as race, geography, economic opportunity, and so much more. Indeed, battles over gender equity are still playing out in real time. In June of 2020, the US Supreme Court ruled that the Civil Rights Act of 1964, through its prohibition on employment discrimination on the basis of sex, protects LGBTQ employees. It was a landmark ruling, noteworthy both for the critical protections it provides and the reality that it underscores. Until just 2 years ago, employers in some states could legally discriminate against employees because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. Still today, transgender and gender nonconforming individuals face mistreatment, discrimination, and worsening violence. In 2021 alone, over 250 anti-LGBTQ bills were introduced in state legislatures across our country. These are serious topics, and in that context, you may be wondering why this year's Gender Conference explores comedy. After all, comedy is about laughter. It can be silly and lighthearted. Yet there's far more to comedy than punchlines or slapstick, as delightful as those things may be. Comedy can be harmful. It can mock, demean, and perpetuate stereotypes. It can reinforce dominant narratives and narrow conceptions of who and what can be funny. Yet comedy can also be empowering, and it can reveal important truths. As we'll hear today, comedy is a powerful means to engage with one another and with ideas. Performers use comedy to tell their stories and share their experiences, be they joyful or painful. Comedy can question norms and challenge power structures, and laughter can forge connections and build community. This is especially true now, as people from marginalized communities whose voices too often have been silenced are taking the microphone. Our first session today will examine the connections between comedy and gender in all of its complexity as we seek to answer the question, gender and comedy, why now? Then, in our second session, panelists will reflect on the unexpected interactions between gender and comedy. After a lunch break, we'll reconvene to explore what we still don't understand and what we hope to learn about gender and comedy. And finally, we'll conclude with the keynote address by actor, writer, and comedian Patty Harrison. Patty's credits include shows like Shrill and I Think You Should Leave, as well as movies like Together, Together, and The Lost City, which is in theaters now. After Patty's keynote, she'll be joined in conversation by Lisa Henson. Lisa is CEO of the Jim Henson Company, where she's overseen numerous television shows and films. Lisa is also a graduate of Harvard and was the first woman to serve as the president of the Harvard Lampoon. We welcome your questions at any point during the program. Whether you're watching online or here in person, you can submit questions using the Slido link that is provided on the screen behind me and posted in the chat on Zoom. The moderator and speakers in each session will address as many questions as they can. We'll start our first session in just a moment, but first, let me thank the Alumni Board of the Harvard Lampoon, which originally proposed the theme of this year's conference. The program coincides with their celebration of 50 years of women on the Lampoon, and many path-breaking Lampoon alums are speaking in today's sessions. In addition to Lisa Henson, we'll hear from Patricia Marx, the first woman ever elected to the Lampoon, and Alexis Wilkinson, the first Black woman to serve as president of the Lampoon. I'm also particularly pleased to welcome Maya Varun, who is here with us in person. Maya was the first Black woman editor of the Harvard Lampoon and has had a long and successful career as a television writer, producer, and novelist, and she's been a mentor to many. I also want to thank everyone who made this convening possible. I'm grateful to the conference's faculty organizers, Professor Shigehisa Kuriyama, Wright Institute Professor of Cultural History in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and the former Director of Humanities here at Radcliffe, and Professor Glenda Carpio, Chair of the Department of English, Harvard College Professor, and Professor of English and African American Studies in the Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences. And of course, thank you to all our speakers, moderators, and performers. I also want to thank Rebecca Wasserman, Executive Director of Academic Ventures and Engagement, Jessica Ficklin, Director of Events, and all of their team members. Let me also recognize the members of the Radcliffe Institute Leadership Society and all our annual donors. Your generous support keeps Radcliffe's lectures, conferences, exhibitions, and collections free and open to the public, and we thank you. I also gratefully acknowledge the Perrin, Moorhead, Grayson, and Bruns Graysons, Dean's Leadership Fund for Academic Ventures, which is supporting this event today. And finally, thanks to all of you in our virtual and in-person audience for joining us. With that, I'm pleased to kick off our first session, which will be moderated by Glenda Carpio. Please join me in warmly welcoming Glenda and our panelists to the stage. Glenda.
Good morning to those of you joining us online. It's a pleasure to be up here. I am here partly because I wrote a book called Laughing Fit to Kill, Black Humor on the Fictions of Slavery, which is an odd pairing, to be sure. But I think one of the things that we need to consider is in this whole conference, it's that as Ralph Ellison, the writer and essayist, novelist, and in some ways a humor critic, said that the harder the conflicts in culture, the bigger the comic antidote, right? So I'm here to do two things. One is to introduce the larger concepts of this particular panel and to introduce the wonderful people sitting here with whom I'll have a conversation later on and field questions from you, the audience here and also online. So why now? One way to think about why we're looking at comedy and gender right now is because we're at an inflection point, right, in which normative ways of thinking of gender are being challenged in many different ways. And so there's a lot of social tension, right? I think we need to think back, though, that the question of gender in comedy has been, kind of entertained from many centuries ago. So just think of the fact that women were not allowed to be on stage as actors during the Elizabethan era, right? So men had to be in drag, acting the roles of women. There's a lot of cross-dressing in Shakespeare, right? And you can think about how much comedy came out of the fact that there was this, women were being excluded from the stage. Think of the minstrel show, which is closer to our time and our culture, right? Where white men were not only cross-dressing as women, but putting on cork, right? So they were racially and gender-wise transgressing norms and making fun of Black people and Black women and specifically, right? So there's a way in which gender in comedy has spared because of people were excluded from the stage. And at this point, we are at a moment where people that were excluded from the stage are taking the stage, right, and making humor and making us think about our normative ways in which we thought about gender, right? You want to think about the fact that since it's an inflection point, some of the humor, I think, is still being kind of workshopped, to be honest. And I think there is a question about whether social justice and comedy go hand in hand, right? In what context does social justice and comedy go hand in hand? Can that happen in the august and wooden panels of Harvard? Is it it's a bar where you're workshopping jokes, a better context for which to do that, right? What is the rise of sort of intellectual takes on humor, right? These are questions that I myself have been asking and will discuss with my panelists here. But without further ado, I want to introduce the speakers. On my immediate left, we have Patricia Marx, who, as we know, was the first woman elected to the Harvard Lampoon. She's a writer for The New Yorker and has taught screenwriting and humor at Princeton, New York University, and Columbia. And then to her left, we have Alexis Wilkinson, whom I had the pleasure of meeting in a class that I taught here called Black Humor, in which I definitely lived what it's like to want to teach something as vibrant as the Queen of Comedy women, right, at Harvard. It was pretty hard. But Alexis was part of that group, and she went on to write for Veep right after graduation, and is now writing for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She has had an incredible career. She made headlines as the first African-American woman to be president of the Harvard Lampoon, and is here, and I'm so happy to see you, Alexis. And then to her left, we have Jeff, who's a comedian, actor, and writer. He's currently an award-nominated writer-performer for Seth Myers. Jeff rose to fame with his short, quick-witted sketches that he writes, directs, and stars in, often satirizing social media and pop cultural brands. So help me in welcoming the panel. Patricia, I think you're first.
I know this is about gender, but being on the panel with such babies, all I can think about is age. I started writing comedy in 1836. So this whole topic makes me feel a little irrelevant because it just was not discussed. It is not that people didn't say, what was it like being on the first Girl in the Lampoon? But I didn't think of it as a topic of discussion. It was just like, well, I was the millionth customer who walked through the door and got the dining room set. It was just sort of timing. But anyway, as a demonstration of my irrelevance, I am going to, well, I'm not, because I'm so old, we don't know about computers, but somebody is going to show for me some clips of a video series I'm working on with my friend and New Yorker colleague and book collaborator, Roz Chast, who does cartoons for the New Yorker, in which she and I play pathetic, aging ukulele stars who were very big in the 70s and late 60s, and we were the ones who told Bob Dylan to go nasal, and we were. Anyway, I'm going to show the trailer, and as trailers are, it's self-explanatory. We hope, and then I'm going to show half of episode 2, and that's all you need to know. I think this will be, as they say at the doctors, you will feel a little discomfort, and then it will be over. Do it. Now I'm going to show, or somebody will show, the first half of episode 2, which makes it sound like it's like The Godfather, but it's only a few minutes long, and there's really nothing you need. Maybe it would be. It won't really be useful. But our manager, Doug McGrath, is primarily a shoe salesman, so he refers to that. He was also my writing partner at Saturday Night Live, and has gone on to be much more successful than I. Okay. Take me out to the ball game. Is it a bad thing that nobody's here?
No, it means there's plenty of space now for people to come and to listen and to enjoy. So you really have to project, have confidence, believe in yourselves, and if you hear anything that sounds like the police, run right off stage and I'll be behind you. Okay. Got it? Let's go.
Okay. There's one thing I don't understand. Confidence is 1.
Okay,
and then project is 1. Project's 1.
They haven't been on stage in, 40 years.
Confidence, project.
Police for 3. Maybe
But something was 3.
When I look at my list, any manager has a list. Those are all your clients. And, if I were to lose Patty and Roz, then I'm really down to, just the paper of that my list is on. But there's, nobody else is on the list at the moment.
Hi, everyone. Just want to thank all of you, the whole group of you for coming out. It's incredible, really. Okay, so here they are, Patty and Roz, The Melt.
Wow.
I'm getting a little nervous.
No, it'd be great.
I'm not wearing my lucky sweater.
Yeah, but you're wearing your lucky jacket.
This jacket has no luck in it. It's not unlucky.
Hi, look, it's great. And I think everyone...
And lucky too,
I'm
right?
so lucky.
I'm not saying it's unlucky. I'm saying that it is not lucky.
Right, okay, it's luck neutral.
There's difference between unlucky and not lucky.
Everybody has their standard for what constitutes a good show. One of mine would be not having the performers arrested in mid-performance. I was a little worried that the police might, want to see our permit, and we didn't have one, so I had to just keep my eyes peeled.
Well, Doug, where's the press? Because where's the press?
The press. Well, it's hard to pick them out of the...
I guess you're wondering where we've been all these years. Oh, it's a protest. It's an anti-uke protest.
They look angry.
Yeah. I think they want to hear something. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. And take me out to the ball game. Let me sit near the food. I need some peanuts and Cracker Jack.
So at the Q&A, we'll have the opportunity to ask Patricia all kinds of questions about this work that she shared with us, as is true of the other two panelists who will now share some of their work as well.
Hi, Patty. I was very tickled by that. Do you know what are the two like cantankerous like Muppets that sit up in the audience? It's like if those were women in ukulele players. Lisa, you know the names of them. I don't, but I love that. I do not have work queued up necessarily, but just what I was going to do for just and keep it relatively brief, I think, is kind of give some background on like why I'm even sitting up here with these esteemed people, and kind of my perspective on gender comedy. Why now, being the first Black female president of the Harvard Lampoon. So I'm originally from Wisconsin, and I was raised very like mathy, sciencey. So my mom will not be watching this because she does not care about my jokes, my writing. When I worked for Veep, she used to tell people that I worked for HBO, like I was in accounting or something. I don't know. I write television, an Emmy. I have an Emmy. Like, she's like, doesn't mean anything to her. And so when I got to Harvard, I got my degree in economics here, and when I got here, I kind of, when my senior year in Wisconsin, I went to a public school in Wisconsin, and by my senior year, I was the first person to get in and go to Harvard since like the 70s. So my senior year after I got in, I didn't have to go to class. Like, I basically could just like be like, hey, I'm gonna go get some Jimmy John's, bye. Like, like what are they gonna do, kick me out? Like, you can't, not let me graduate? Like, so, and that was sort of, kind of a big fish in a small pond feeling. And then I got here and it was the complete opposite, right? I was captain of the debate team in high school. I couldn't even make the debate team here if I tried, and kind of, not to, that's all set up to, I was like, how hard could it be to write jokes? I could probably do that here, right? So that's how I ended up. I had never heard of the Lampoon. I didn't know anything about how actually difficult, the application process and being on staff was, but I just thought just jokes, how hard can it be? It's very hard. And I think, through getting on the Lampoon my freshman year, and I was the third Black woman ever on the Lampoon, and the first one is sitting right over there, and the second one is I hope she's somewhere. She's alive. She's in between me and her. Her name's Aisha Murar, very talented. Wrote for Parks and Rec, amazing. But to put a point on it, she was vice president under Conan. Aisha was vice president, and I was president. And I think that shows what type of Black girl you have to be to get on the Lampoon. Okay, you can't half step, right? So, so I think with in that context, gender and thinking about these issues, kind of like Patty said, like it wasn't something I was thinking about. Like I didn't come in there being like, I'm gonna be the first anything, right? Just like, oh, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and it just so happened to happen. And while that was happening, I guess 2014, it was a huge conversation at SNL around like them not having Kenan Thompson play all the Black women, not having a Black woman host, and so it was Black History Month. It was February at the time, so I got to do interviews and like actually sit and think and talk about these things a lot. And for me, I think, as a woman, and just generally, I feel like what the conversation that's now being allowed to happen is all about these different like POVs, and that's what like how humor is created is about like context, and you can't separate the jokes from the context. Like I can say one thing to my sister that I can't say to my mom or to you people, and that'll be funny. And so I'm excited how much that like we're able to have this conversation, that there's so many amazing female comedians and writers, and that we can actually sit and discuss this. But it's more than I think about just even gender. It's about there's intersectionality there. It's about race. It's about economic status, and all of that has to do with like whose stories get told and who do we laugh at and who do we laugh with. And I think what I try to do in my work is not just tell my story, but give like make a space for other people to tell their stories and be able to laugh at what I'm laughing at and not laugh with me instead of laughing at me, obviously. And so that's it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really great. I just want to add one little thing before I turn it to you, Jeff. When Alexis was in my course, the students had to do one-page responses, and it was the most fun I've ever had grading papers, right? Because they were...
I thought she was about to, I was like, that's the nicest way of saying I was the most annoying student.
No.
She's like, oh, Alexis, good time.
No.
Revisionist history, guys. She did not have fun with me.
No, it was really great. It was really great. Jeff?
Hi, my name is Jeff. I'm here to speak for all the dudes. No, I think gender and comedy is a great pairing because comedy is my favorite medium of communication. I think it's an important tool in offering perspective and insight into ourselves and the lives we live. That's probably the most poignant thing I'm gonna say today. But no, especially because it disarms people, you know, when it comes to topics that can be sensitive or divisive. Comedy offers us the tools to approach these things and challenge our perspectives, all while still being funny. So it's like we're getting attacked, but we can like take it. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe not attacked, but we're addressing issues, but taking it. It's kind of weird talking without standing up. I'm usually pacing back and forth on stage. I'm doing sit-down comedy today. It's a panel.
We on a panel.
But anyway, Nina Simone, AKA my auntie, once said, it's an artist's duty to reflect the times. And she chose to reflect her times through music, and I choose to do that, mine through comedy. Now, don't get me wrong, I still want to be funny. I want to be the funniest, but I can't help but see things that we go through in the world that like I relate to or can't help but notice. And I think comedy is the perfect vehicle to address certain things. Like, for example, at the Oscars, when Amy Schumer, relax.
This is being recorded.
I got it. When Amy Schumer pointed out that there were 3 women hosting and it was cheaper than having one man, like that's funny, but it's also true, and it's like how you address these things is cool. I think another example of addressing things through comedy is a situation where Ryan Coogler, who's the director of Black Panther, he was almost arrested at the Bank of America for trying to withdraw his own money, you know, and I relate to that because I got money, I'm Black, and I be trying to take my money out too. But I think the ironic truth in all of that is it's hard for Americans to argue America isn't racist when you can get racially profiled by the literal Bank of America, you know? That's tough. That's tough. But a medium that I like to use to highlight these things and the way the world is are on my sketches on Late Night with Seth Myers. If we can play one now, I was gonna airdrop it to y'all, but I think we got the monitors.
Great.
You ain't got to clap for that, because that was real. No, but I think in that, I wanted to highlight the relationship between the government and its citizens and the Black citizens and students, which is self-explanatory. But I think with comedy, you can highlight perception, because perception is reality. You know, what we think happens is what happens to a certain degree, and breaking through and letting people know what actually happens or speaking from our sides is important. I think we could do that through comedy. I think I'm happy I can do that on Late Night with Seth Myers. I call it Late Night with my uncle. Seth Myers is my uncle, but that's because where I'm from, anyone that pays you that much money, you gotta call him something. But I think using that medium, using comedy as a tool to disarm people, but let them know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, it's easier for someone to be receptive, especially in being honest. When you see someone that doesn't look like you, you're apprehensive at first, not just because you've been taught things or told things, but just because it's unique. You've never seen anything like that. Even when you see a toy for the first time, is it a weapon? Is it a toy? You know, you don't know. But I think comedy, some toys are toys, but still.
You a cop or something?
I'm just saying.
You can't really.
I'm just saying. But in that, you're apprehensive at first, and I think comedy allows you to go, oh, this won't hurt me, but and then you get to hear what is actually being said. I think another important vehicle in doing all this is social media. Like TikTok. I know a lot of y'all don't know what that is. You know what that is? Okay. Y'all thought I was out here trying to be funny. No. Or Facebook, right? Yeah. I don't think I can go. But yeah, I think social media offers us something that the traditional network television cannot, and that's the speed in which you can put out the message, but also the fact that anyone who's anyone can put out something for everyone to see. Now, it is a little tougher on social media, I will say, because there's a lot of static. Everyone is saying something. So putting out something that's important is probably not going to get heard as easy. But I think the beauty in that, though, is someone is going to see it. And I think as long as it's out there, it's enough, because the right person might see it, one person might see it, and one person is better than no one. I think I wanted to end with something poignant, and I just want to end right there, because
Thank you.
I felt like that was good.
It was. So we'll be taking questions from the audience, both here and online. But because I'm, here, I get to ask some of the first questions, right? Before I do ask the questions, I think one way to we might think also about the role of humor in connection to injustice, right? Is that often injustice is absurd. Right, to question somebody's humanity is absurd it's almost like a given, right? And to question, it's often comedians don't challenge the absurdity; they turn it up, right? So to exaggerate, to really go lean in all the way, right? So that you can see the absurdity, right? So. There's a tradition in African American humor, and also a humor of oppression, so sort of Jewish American humor, right? That's also humor in the face of death, right? So it's gallows humor, right? So often we laugh not only to release tension, which is the normal way in which we think about humor, right? As a cathartic release. Sometimes it's also a way to express anger, right? That's also catharsis. But often it's also a way to affirm one's humanity, right? When I was writing my book, I had to think about whether dogs laugh. Do they have a comedy, right? They have joy. They seem to, sometimes they have, but they don't have timing, right? A sense of timing, which is really crucial for comedy, right? But humor is what distinguishes us from other sentient beings, right? Because we have a sense of timing, and because we know we're going to die. We have a sense of our mortality, right? So much of humor comes from that, right? And so when you think about people who are excluded from what it means to be human, whether it is along the lines of race, gender, sexuality, right? A lot of the humor that comes out of that is a kind of assertion of one's humanity, right? And so humor can be light and sweet, but it can also have a whole range of capacities, right? It can allow us to be sad, and so it's a way of mourning. The playwright Susan Laurie Parks often connects the moment where you laugh really, really hard, that tears come out, right? As a moment of where you can actually express sadness, right? And so as we start to ask our panelists questions, I think it would be great for us to kind of think very broadly about what humor does, right? Often, it's about absurdity. It's about also dislodging us from the so-called commonsensical ways of thinking and seeing the world, right? It creates entropy. It kind of dislodges normative ways of seeing the world and sets them into entropy, right? So that we can see that something like a binary male, female, it's a made-up binary, right? And so that it's not reality per se, right? And so I think I'd like to ask the panelists to see what you learned from each other, and just seeing like Patty's piece, hearing from Alexis about roots and like having a concentration in economics, not coming up with humor, or Jeff, like how you came up with the idea of the sketches, right? Or what's it like to play all these different roles, right? It's a great tradition that you can see very well with the work of Richard Pryor, for instance, in which he would do that kind of switching on stage without media, right? Without TikTok, without cameras, right? And so you brought up the great question of media, right? And the question that we're thinking about right now is, why now, right? And I suggested that it's an inflection point when it comes to gender, right? But it's also a moment in which media is really changing, has already changed. Generations are being born into a media-savvy world, right? So maybe we can start there, right? How does the mediums that we've had to do comedy are, bodily performance, writing, in the quiet of your own space, or doing it through, Twitter or on television, right? And so how does, the changing landscape of media changing your work? I think that's what I'd like to ask each of you to respond to. Right.
You want to go first, Patty?
No. I have so little and so much to say. So much to say about other things, not this. No. Why now? That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, why not at 11:30 when I wouldn't have had to get up so early? And I could have done stuff online. But, when I told a friend of mine last night that I was on this panel, and I said gender in comedy, and she said, be careful. And, everybody is heard and everybody talks back. I mean, that is the beauty and also the not beauty of so much media. I mean, back in 1836, when I was in the Harvard Lampoon, we said some kind of terrible things, and we were irreverent, which sometimes people are irreverent just to be irreverent, not to make a point. And it's a very political age, too. I mean, as someone who tends, and not to like it, to write a little bit too cute sometimes, if there's not something fundamentally that you're talking about, it becomes so what? Now I completely forget what I was talking about. But I think, yes, everyone's heard, but you kind of have to keep that in mind. So it is a little frightening. I teach too, and things have changed, and it. On the other hand, it's a little stymieing because humor is about being irreverent and saying whatever you want. And if you can't say whatever you want, you should be someone who only says things that people love to hear, I guess, and then you have no problems. But it's a great, exciting age, but it's a little scary.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think even I after Jeff talked, I realized that I'd seen, before he even got on Seth Myers, I'd seen his like viral videos.
Yeah,
It was very
yeah,
famous.
it's true.
Um,
That's how I knew him.
right? No,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I just like
Yeah.
put it all together. But I think exactly what Patty's saying is that like there's a great like democratization of like platforms and stuff. So like you can, you with this iPhone, I can shoot a movie and put it up online. I can say whatever I want to say, but and everyone can see it and everyone can talk back. And that's part of that I think. Like what happens there as far as self-censorship and things like that. And I think, at least for me, the challenge is always like and I think just generally the challenge of this age is like just think a little bit more before you speak, generally, and I don't think that has to like cut into humor and also and also understand who you're speaking to, and I think that it is kind of scary to like when he was mentioning the Oscars and stuff, and I looked at him because I'm like, this is about to be recorded, so like, Chris Rock or Will Smith, like, are we gonna put that on the record? Like, like nobody wants to talk about Amy Schumer. All right, cop out. He's not gonna talk about whatever he wants to talk about.
I want to talk about women.
Hey. You want to talk about women? He's here to talk about ladies and ladies alone. I think, that's the sort of thing that when you have a platform and when everyone has a platform, that means everyone's a semi-public figure, right? That means you can't just whip things out like you might be able to that you didn't really think through all the way. You're gonna have to delete tweets and all that stuff. Right. But I'll throw it over to this famous man.
To add on to your point, I think standard television and movies or I guess we're at Harvard, so film and
Cinema.
No, I think it's show business. So in that mindset, people think in the traditional format, can I make money off of this? Or they're thinking in the sense of, this is what's worked before, so this is so they're apprehensive to try something new. And this world is new. We're forever changing for the better, and we're accepting new thoughts, new opinions. And I think when it comes to traditional format or to traditional forms of media, it's taking longer because of they're thinking about the dollar. But when it comes to social media, like you were saying, we got power in our phones. We can create content now and get out the messages that we're saying. And honestly, I think the beauty of it is within creating content through social media. Like even when you were like, why did you play, or not why did you play, but why did I play multiple characters? Is because when I say something as a character and I'm met with something else, I'm letting you know exactly what I'm hearing back. So like, as that black man speaking to the government in that sketch, the government is saying one thing, but I'm saying back what I'm hearing from the government. Now, like it's like there's a wall of communication that is that you're trying to break down. It's like you're saying something, I hear what you're saying, but this is what it sounds like to me, and that's what I try to use through social media. But I think that's what we're all doing in social media, and I think it's the perfect medium to do these things. I think it's great. Like I think you get representation on social media, so like everyone gets to see themselves. And you get the message, but the downside to that is everyone gets to rebuff and throw their own comment back, and if you look into it, then you start a whole. But I mean, it's a conversation. Yeah.
To repeat what everybody's said, which is what you do in panels. But to digress from what I didn't say yet. I thought your thing was great, and you should do a whole series on American history for kids, a curriculum, and it's very much sort of the modern political cartoon. But I think one of the reasons that people are saying so much, and again, it's what everybody said, you can have a niche audience now, whereas back then, when there were 3 networks, right, and there were like 10 people deciding who was funny, and you couldn't appeal or speak to a slice, and so back then it got watered down. I mean, it got watered down from the ruling class. I mean, not even watered down from the whole society. So you can be esoteric in a good way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I was just gonna to piggyback on that. Like with the advent of like streaming services and stuff, like you can write to like just you don't have to be. And I like working on projects and stuff like, oh, is it universal? I'm like, what? You don't have to be universal. I'm like, I'm talking to the people who want to hear me.
Right.
That's it. I don't have to tell. You don't have to tell stories for everybody. And it's, and for because what everybody means usually is the majority, and the majority doesn't look like me. So now I think because of all these different, there's streaming services, all these different channels, there's social media and stuff, you can really find your audience and just talk to them, which I think is a benefit of sort of this diversification, democratization of content.
True, and to add to that, I think that's how we're cutting through the static. I think especially when it comes to minorities, and I mean all minorities, like even gender as well. I think proof of concept is what social media is, and it's like there's an audience for this. Like people want to hear about this, need to hear about this, and in doing that through proof of concept on social media, it allows for an easier rebuff to the status quo of television and film. It's like this works. They're like people like I have this amount of followers, meaning what I have to say is important. No, not me. I mean, people. I'm talking about TikTokers. I'm gonna break down TikTokers to y'all in a little bit when we get done.
Airdrop our link.
I got you after this. But yeah, I think proof of concept is how we rebuff the traditional way of thinking. Yeah. I think I'm gonna end all my sentences with yeah.
I love that. I'm surprised though that all of you took a kind of the rosier view of media, and I think you're right that there is a way in which people can produce content that they want because we have more venues, right? But there's also a kind of Big Brother aspect to media and a kind of word, but not that word, kind of social kind of embattlement, right, in which people are really policing each other, right? And I think comedy, so far as I know it, has to have room to bomb. It has to have room to say the wrong thing, right? Because what comedians do, or writers in comedy, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, right, is that you go to the edge, right? Not all comedians. I mean, I think you're right, Patty, that there is, the ukulele piece that you played us is very sweet, and it's making a big point about, entertainment and women, right? And its exclusion, but it's not the kind of comedy that, like, gets at the hot topics, right? Like really hot, where like people are really not sure that trans people should have rights, for instance, right? Which I think some comedians are really trying to get to those points of real, alive conflict, right? And I think we need all kinds of humor, so I'm not saying that we need all that, but I think the media is both producing an opportunity to create new content and to have people who have been excluded from comedy have more of a say, but it's also a place that for comedy itself it's not all good news, right? There's a lot of censoring.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedy, and I don't really do political comedy. It's hard to be completely devoid of political comedy.
Of course,
but mine is, I think that sometimes when comedy doesn't work as comedy is when the political agenda is too front and center.
Right.
I mean, that, when regardless of how it happened, but when you, the viewer or the reader, think they started with the message,
right,
not that it came together, that's when it becomes not funny, and you think, well, why don't you just give a speech and not, I'm not laughing at your joke, so just tell me what you feel.
Yeah, I think that's what this, like, it's an interesting time, right? Because it's both allowing for people to be funny for a broader, expand audiences and put pressure on people who make film and so on and so forth, right? But I think it is true that sometimes the message is first and the art form is secondary.
I mean, Jeff, yours could have fallen flat because of that, but it was so funny. And also, I think when the political humor that works the best for me is the kind that you did, where you're juxtaposing other things with politics. I mean,
Right.
kind of, not entirely, but even if you didn't know what you were talking about, where you'd have to be an idiot, really, politically, but it would be kind of funny because it was also about human behavior and cultural stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think, Glenda, you raise a really good point, and it's something I think a lot about as far as, like, what topics can we talk about, what we can't, and you bring up, like, transgender issues and stuff, and I remember when I was on Veep, there was a joke using, the T slur in it, and I was like, I don't like that, and a couple of the other writers were like, "Ooh, I'm sorry you're so offended." I'm like, I'm not offended. You're not talking about me. I'm not transgender. I'm not offended. I just think it's dumb. I think it's stupid. I think that's a joke that my grandpa would tell. I think it's not 1985 anymore. Like, that's what I think. I'm like, it's not funny to me because it's old. It's old. Let's try something
In the
different.
worst
Let's do
sense.
something
Yes.
different. Let's innovate. Like, if you want to, talk shit about transgender people, let's come a little fresher than that, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's retrograde. It's old news to me. And I think that's for me my thing. I'm like, you can talk about whatever you want, but what is not funny is just rehashing old stereotypes about stuff. That's not funny. And I feel like a lot of, comedians now, it's a weird thing about, like, a lot of, like, and comedians I admire so much are now going to this place where they think they're like the arbiters of what's funny, and then, like, the only person who decides what's funny is your audience. Sorry, I don't know who decided, like, if people aren't laughing at your jokes, that means you're not funny. I'm sorry, like, am I Bueller?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? Like, so you don't get to get up there and be like, oh, these kids these days, they don't know what funny is. No, you're not funny to those kids.
Right.
Like, what's not clicking? Like, I don't get it. And so this sort of idea that there's, like, some arbitrary, pie in the sky, like, that these old men decide is what is funny, and so, and we all have to, like, kowtow to that. It's like, no, what is funny is what's fresh and unexpected and exciting.
Yeah.
And if you don't have anything fresh and unexpected and exciting to say, then shut up.
Yeah.
I don't. Period. Like, what was I supposed to add after that?
Just rephrase it. I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Just say it again in a louder voice, like most
So
men do.
what comedy? No.
What is comedy? Explain to my woman mind what comedy is, please.
I agree. I think that exactly. No, but honestly, to that point, I think comedians are stuck in this mindset of bad ones, I should say. Bad comedians are stuck in this mindset of even good ones. You're not helping me right now.
Bad one.
I'm talking about the bad ones.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Bad one.
I'm sorry.
But are stuck in this
Silencing
mindset.
women on the panel.
It was at this moment Jeff realized. Jeff didn't even want to go after that point, to be honest. That was cohort. I didn't. I'm so sorry. I think every time, like, you ever watch someone take a sip of water before they speak? That's stalling.
My water's gone. My water's gone, baby. I'm ready.
Your Honor. No, but I think to that point, I think comedy is a device that people use to get off their opinions on certain things, and not everyone is qualified to speak to an issue or a matter or a fact. Like, even in the video, I try to speak to as many voices as I can, but I don't feel like I'm the right person to speak to certain issues, so I don't try to overstep where I'm not needed, or I would seek another voice to come in. I'm not I'm not like, there was no, I didn't say woman citizen on my shirt and combat the government, because I know when I'm not supposed to say something, because I feel like, I think there's power in knowing when it's not your turn. I think, and comedy is a device that we can use to address a lot of things, but it's also just or just common sense. I guess it's not common, but it's common sense to know when it's not your turn to speak. And after she went, my common sense was like, it's not my turn to speak.
And yet you did. And yet you did.
Pressure. Oh yeah, but I went with something safe.
No, I mean, no, but to piggyback off what you said of like why your piece kind of works, is like I think people feel like you have to have an opinion on everything. You don't, you know? Like you didn't have a shirt that said like Israel or something like that. I'm like, I do not know enough about that issue to talk about that. Like, you know, and I'm just not going to until, you know, and I don't have the authority nor the knowledge to make jokes about something I do not understand. You know, that's the thing. I'm like,
Isn't that what you learn at school?
What?
Just answer the, no, I'm
No,
kidding.
at Harvard? No, you learned, I had an opinion about everything at Harvard. You can ask Glenda.
Yeah.
I didn't learn to shut up. I learned to talk as much. Why do you think I'm here? Yeah. But, you know, it took adulthood to learn to when I should shut up. And maybe I should do that now anyways.
Jeff, I wanted to ask you a question about whether you've, you know, you have I first got to know you through Twitter, right, and your pieces that you've done there. And so, and your TikTok pieces too. Have you ever gotten flack for pieces that you've done? Have you ever gotten any negative commentary?
I'll be honest, I don't read the comments.
Oh, good. Well, that's
an
interesting thing to know.
I mean, I don't read all the comments. There's like, you got 15 before I check out, and I stop reading. So TikTok is an app that, no, but I think. An app? It's an app is a cell phone is but to that I am mindful before I not even just post something, before I create something. Like, what am I saying? Why do I want to say this? Am I trying to be funny, or do I have a message, or is it both? And I think I take those things into account before I post something, because I think half the time, if I'm surprised by the backlash of anything I say or do, then there's a course correction that needs to be made. I think it's okay to make mistakes in comedy. I think you have to accept that. It's like playing a sport. You're gonna miss some shots. Like, not everything, you're not perfect. And it's like, what do you do now? You go back to the gym and you practice, or you see or watch the film tape and see what you did wrong. And I would do the same thing with my comedy. I'm sure I got some videos that are like, this ain't funny. Like, I'm sure there's some comments in there that we delete because
Blocked and reported for abuse.
But no, I welcome people's critique of my art. I understand that's what I signed up for when I put something out, and I understand there's some validity to everyone's opinion, so I take it in. But it doesn't. I think everyone.
No, I think there are some people you want to offend. I mean,
Right?
if you are
opinions do not matter.
reaching a lot of people and you're saying something worthy, there are going to be people that disagree with them. You just want to make sure that you're offending the right people, the people on your team.
Yeah.
To that though, I
I don't mean that you're offending them because you want to offend them, but there's no way to say anything that is important
without pissing somebody off.
And maybe we didn't know it when it was like we weren't reading their comments, or they weren't seeing it, but it's inevitable. And
ooh, I'm glad we got something we disagree on. No, I'm just playing.
we disagree. No,
I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but I think we
can't both agree, because then we'll be on different sides again.
Right, but I think to my point of what I'm trying to get across is what's my goal in the message, right? And I feel like if someone is upset, like, did they get the goal or what the message that I was trying to say? And that is what I mean, like, it's like, because it reached them. Like, you got what I was
Right.
trying to say.
Yep.
And, like, if it didn't get across, then I feel like then there's course correction.
I say
and-
yes, yes.
Yeah.
If you
It's
didn't
like-
convey if you're using
Right.
humor to convey a message and you didn't,
get it
Convey
across,
it.
then it's
Right.
like, let me
Then
come
you
at it
failed
a
as a
different.
comedian.
But
Right.
that's what.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
finally we agree.
yeah, I'm glad you guys made up. I agree, but I think, I agree and also disagree because I think you,
That's where you're
Hot
sitting
take.
in the middle.
yeah, right. I feel like to your point, it's like if you got what I was trying to say and didn't like the way I said it, that's a course correction. If you just stupid and you missed the point entirely, I'm not course correcting for shit. Sorry, can I swear? My bad. But like I'm like, I'm like, and to Patty's point, when I got elected President of Lampoon, they the white supremacist site like Stormfront or whatever, like put my like picture and everything, and as scary as that was, I was also like, I'm pissing the KKK off. Ooh. You mad? White supremacists
You've arrived.
mad? You mad? Like, I'm like, be mad, die mad. Oh, you don't say. You talking about me? I'm like, my ancestors would be proud. I'm like, you mad? You mad? So you got to make the right people mad.
You got a point, because
Right?
look, to piss off the. No, let me
Right?
not
So I
speak to
piss
them.
off the KKK? Oh, I'm doing so.
Like, they already mad
They
at all of us.
already mad,
But
it's
to
extra
single you
special.
out,
You single me.
that mean they
little
heard.
black
That mean
me.
they heard the
You
message.
mad?
They heard the message.
They heard it. They got it entirely, and they
No, for
mad.
sure.
Love it.
I think I think that's another beautiful thing about social media or content in the sense of who you are now. Like, I'm glad when people say something, it's like, oh, now I know how you think. I think it's important for every side to get heard. That way, you know how to navigate this world. Like, I'd rather a sign up front saying I don't like certain, and it's like, oh, okay, now I know how to adjust around these certain things. Yeah.
That's my cue. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you some questions from the audience. Okay. So one of our audience members wants to know what your writing process is like. What makes for creativity, joy, effectiveness, focus? What conditions facilitate best flow? And whether that happens individually or if it's better in a collaborative setting. It's a lot.
Are you looking over here?
You want me to go first?
It's your turn, Patty.
It's her fault.
Well, I write.
That's a good question.
I don't write for TV, so I don't write in a room. But I started out writing in TV and had Doug McGrath as my writing partner, which just no, I won't forget the topic. I was just going to say, I think in some ways as a writer, it's not a good thing to start out with a collaborator, because you get used to kind of, well, he'll think of something. I just pretend I'm thinking, and he'll think of something funny. And then when I started writing alone, I go, I don't really know how to do this. Right. But I write all the time and none of the time. I take issue with the word joy. I mean, writing is really, really, really hard. And except when it's finished and you're going, I think there could be a comma there, and that would really change things. I think it can be gratifying. I really, it's not that I'm working all the time, but I'm miserable all the time. And when I first started writing, I would make all my friends really unhappy. First, I'd make my parents unhappy, and at one point, I would say, I need a premise, and I need it fast, and I told my mother at one point, I don't know why, but King Features asked me to write a syndicated column every day, and she said, if you do that, Daddy and I will get an unlisted number because our marriage can't tolerate that. Because I just annoyed everybody, and then I would give everybody my pieces, and they would tell me what they thought. And at some point, you realize that's like asking everybody for their favorite color. I mean, you don't really learn anything. So now I'm just alone, and I write it, and I write it, and I write it, and I write it, and I write it. And then if you have a deadline, it's easy, because then it's like time's up, hand it in. I do think that what's your writing process is kind of interesting, and lots of books have been written about it. Somebody told me there's an interesting book now on writers' routines, but I don't know if it's useful because it's really an idiosyncratic thing. Some people like pressure, some people don't like pressure. I don't like pressure, really.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that like everyone's writing process is different, but I think also what you were saying about, you know, if you're constantly writing with somebody else, then for me at least, you know, my whole journey as a writer is like developing my own voice. And so if I'm constantly, you know, and that's why like I'm not currently on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but like when I was staffing on shows and stuff, you know, I think it, you know, trying to write for other people, right, or for other characters or something, it's like it took me a while to figure out like, well, what do I sound like? You know, what is my voice like by myself in a vacuum? What do I put out there in the world when I don't have, you know, a network exec or somebody else trying to, you know, put me in the line? I think I think that's another powerful thing about social media and stuff, because that, you know, it's you, it's just you. You don't have to try to appease everyone else. But I think, you know, usually like I'll, you know, write alone, and I also write all the time, and none of the time I have like a journal and stuff, and I'll it's funny too, because I'll write like if I just hear something funny, like and you know, write it without context, so I'll look and I'll be like, oh, she's shaped like a corn dog. No context for that. Okay, all right. Like I wrote that down for some reason, like on the BART, you know, the other day. I don't know why I wrote that. You know, like but just like, just stupid stuff like that, and if you know, funny conversations and little pieces, just so I can, you know, sometimes that sparks something. Right. I think you know, as far as deadlines go, I think that's the great thing about working when you're working on a show, something like that. Like the show's got to happen. The show's coming out. So like whether you feel like writing or not, whether you feel funny today or not, the thing has to happen. Like the circus is not slowing down for one monkey. You know, like I should not racist.
We knew what you meant.
I mean what I meant. You know what I meant. I don't know what I meant. There's too many white people in the room for me to say monkey.
To add to that point, no, I think the whole time you're playing mental gymnastics with yourself. You got confidence goes into it. It's not like, I relate everything to sports for some reason, but it's not like you know when you met the goal in sports, and with writing, you're your own critic. You know when, like, you never know if this is good enough or this is like, so that's one of the toughest parts about it. I think every process is different. I think no matter what, you're on a solo journey in it. And it just, there's always room to get better. I think that part is just so mind-boggling to me. Like, I'll send something, and then Amber Ruffin, who is great and who's also a writer on Late Night, but she has her own show too. I'll send her something, and she's like, yeah, but do more. And I'm like, but I thought this was it. I thought this was the apex of it. Nah, but so understanding that aspect in it, it's great when things just come to you. Like, that is when you're in your flow of writing. But to create something out of nothing is one of the toughest things to do. And I think the process for me, if I wanted to be super specific, is it's ever changing for me. Sometimes if it's just writing jokes, I need a setup, or if you give me a setup, then I'm mad that this is the setup. I'm like, why can't I have anything? Like, why do I have to have just this? And so it's like I'm forever in a mood swing. But I think that's what it is. And understanding that, and it's not joyous, like you said, right? It's really grueling to do, but it's something about after you've written something, or like after you've done it, like that feeling is bar none. At least for me, it's like I don't like roller coasters, but that adrenaline rush I can relate to in doing that. It's like, like I did it, I'm done, and like that is what I seek after all the time. It's like that rinse and repeat. But yeah, my process is just sitting there and coming up with garbage after garbage until you get something good, and then you don't tell people about the garbage, and then you show them the good, and they're like, you're a genius, and you're like, yeah. Bro, I just love this suit, sir.
Right?
Yeah, really. That's
great.
an entrance.
I put my glasses on for that.
Comes through.
But you saw how he acted like we can't see him.
Yeah, right.
The loudest suit. For the people watching on Zoom, the loudest suit.
He's wearing a
just walked
canary
in.
yellow
Cool. You should really come up.
Right, yeah, no.
With
he
a
looked
purple
fresh.
shirt. Yes.
We were wondering where the sun was outside. It's here.
It's here, it's in the room.
You look beautiful, sir.
So I have another question from the audience. Somebody wants to know if you're concerned, or do you think your comedy can transform the worldviews of audience members, say around issues of racism or sexism?
Well, can transform what? I didn't hear.
Can transform the worldviews of audience members.
What do you think?
I mean, I think, you know, I feel like it'd be overselling, you know, the power of jokes to say that, like, you're gonna hear, you know, my joke and, like, you're gonna stop being a KKK member or whatever. But if it can, like, make you be a little less bad of a KKK member, then maybe, like, I'd be like, you know, I think comedy, like, it can start, like, asking you questions, like, make you think about your worldview a little bit more. You know, and that might eventually get to a change. Like, if you you know believe that like thinking about his sketch and stuff, that like the you know the government always does everything right with your money and stuff, but like maybe that sketch, and maybe you know you're not gonna walk away from that sketch and maybe like, you know what, maybe the government is kind of wasting a little bit of money.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So I think it's, you know, I don't think anyone sees a you know, comedy special in like completely 180s their point of view, but I think the goal of it really is to start you thinking about these things that maybe you didn't question before.
Mostly you're preaching to the choir, but if you preach loud enough, sort of there will be some noise and people will get used to the fact that this is an opinion that's in the air, and these are people that I hadn't been listening to that are saying it, and I think there's kind of a gradual change. I don't think that one piece of comedy is going to change anything, and mostly the people who are going to laugh are going to be the people who completely agree with you.
Right.
Yeah.
To that point, I think for the most part, you're preaching to the choir, like you said. I think, but there is, it's like, what's the goal? I think changing the world, I think that's tough. I mean, because like comedy at the end of the day is art. I mean, it's tough to look at a painting and go, I'm not racist anymore.
Take the hood off. You're like, new leaf.
But I do think, because, like you were saying, how loud you can get with art, eventually people get familiar, and it's like, it's hard to hate someone you like, you know? And like, eventually you see someone enough, and you're like, damn, like, okay, there has to be something to this. Like, because it's like, all negative things are learned behavior. Like, because as human beings, we learn a pattern of something, and then we act on that pattern. But I think comedy kind of, if we're speaking about comedy or art, I think we're speaking about comedy, but I just, to the larger point, I think you get to a place where you can put a chink in someone's defenses and their armor and get your message across, and that way you create a little bit of change. I think Tupac once said, he's not gonna change the world, but he might, I'm misquoting Tupac, this is terrible. And
You're gonna go to hell.
yeah, I can't walk outside. No, this is Harvard. This is Harvard, I'm gonna be good.
Misquote them, they ain't gonna know.
They're not gonna know. So Tupac once said, Tupac is a rapper. But no, he said he may not change the world, but he may spark the change to the world. Somebody might hear him and be that change that he might be. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're speaking to what we're going through, and or what we see, and we're hoping that someone who's in a position or has some say so or is closely related to doing something about it can speak to what we're saying or help or add in any way. But yeah. I think comedy, we're just crying out for help in a certain way. It's like after you stubbed your toe, banged your head, like broke your arm, like what can you do but laugh, you know? And I think that's to a certain point, like you're saying, like we're laughing and we're crying at the same time. It's like we're just expressing what we feel.
And sneezing.
and sneezing. It's just everything is just coming out. But you're to that point. It's like you're just trying to say what you see, and you're hoping someone sees it and has some bit of empathy at this point, not sympathy. But, yeah.
I think that's a good point that you made about that. Regardless, you're not going to change anybody's opinion in 1 second, but comedy, even when it's on, kind of even aggressive comedy, the person can often be very likable. So there are just more people being likable that are not like you, that you grow to like. And I think that does change things. I mean, when I was asked to be on this panel, I did what I always do is, and it's always pointless, I just Google things and think something will help me. And I did come across when the Not Ready for Primetime Players, which later became SNL, in their first year, one of their marketing gimmicks was, and there's a girl in the show. And that was like, whoa, what a draw. But, and I think maybe it was like a freak show. But now, the world's changed. I mean, that's would be the stupid to say.
Right.
Funny, though.
I think also, I almost ate the microphone. I think at the end of the day, the goal is to make people laugh. And in that, if you're not doing that, then that's when you go back to the drawing board, I don't think of myself as that important in this whole world. Like, y'all saw the movie Greenland Greenland, when they were picking like the world was ending, right? And they're picking certain people to repopulate the world, right? And you take an engineer, and they're not taking me. My comedy is not going to be, and I wouldn't want them to. You know how much
Speak
pressure,
for yourself.
you know how much pressure that would be?
No, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I'm like, I got good genes, okay? I'm hardy. That's why they picking me, not because of my jokes.
You can have that.
All right, if you don't want to be on the ark, you don't have to be on the ark. That's fine.
I'm going to be at my mama's house.
I think it also matters what medium you're using, because I'm thinking of Langston Hughes wrote this great book that very few people read. It's called The Ways of White Folk. It was published in 1934, and it's hilarious. And what it does is to shift the perspective from when people say race, they usually think the people who phenotypically aren't white, right? But race is really about everybody. Race is about whiteness, right? And so as early as 1934, and even before that, right, Langston Hughes was primarily known and taught at high schools for I Too Sing America, right, where he had much more potent things that he wrote in his life. This book, right, gives us a portrait of what whiteness looks like to people, to black people, right? And he does it through humor. It's phenomenal. And a year before that, George Schuyler wrote what is known as probably the first black sci-fi book. It's called Black No More. It's about in a world in which a black person invents a machine that can turn black people white, and what ensues when that happens, right? It's this great satire that I made Alexis read.
I was like, I read that. Yeah.
I made you read that, right?
I did my assignment.
So I think it matters also that, like, it's only recently that people have began to understand that comedy is also in the written form, right? And like of course we know Chaucer, right? And of course we know Shakespeare was funny. But do we know who Charles Chestnut is? He's like one of the best comedians on paper, right? He's of the generation right after the Civil War, right? And so, you have people know that Paul Beatty's funny on paper, right? But he has a whole lineage of people coming before him, right? So I think sometimes performance comedy has the power to have it be felt. If there's any transformative aspect to it, it's like the ritual of going to a concert. So it's also not just the fact that you're laughing, but that you're laughing in and out of confluence with other people in a ritualistic setting. So I think the ritualistic aspect of comedy can have some of that, like, slight transformative, it's ephemeral, right? Because after the concert, maybe you forget. But I think my point is that if you switch mediums and you look at writers, they're leaving testimony. They're saying, I'm seeing injustice, and I'm writing it funny because it is absurd, right? So I think for me, as when I teach comedy, I think in some ways the books have a better chance to be remembered, right, than a performance that people might see in a TikTok, right? But there's different sides to it, right? Like, because the TikTok reaches more people, right? Books, not even my esteemed colleagues in the English department probably have read The Ways of White Folk, right? And so there are pros and cons to the different medium.
Well, I think humor is one of the most, maybe the most ephemeral of arts, and it's funny because you're laughing. It's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Right.
You laugh immediately because you recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
But if you want to be great, and I'm talking like Mark Twain great,
Yeah.
I'm talking Langston Hughes great, you've got to be transcending that moment, that specific point in place.
Right.
And
You have to be tapping into something
right.
big.
So I think when you're performing, as opposed to writing, the more topical, the better. And it's quite ephemeral. I mean, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
you're doing it for an hour, and then you're over, and you can talk about what happened in the news that morning. But maybe like the way it is now, not even that last week. Whereas a book, I mean, for one thing, it takes a long time to publish.
Right.
So you have to be kind of more fundamental about what you're saying. I mean, buzzwords are going to be forgotten the next day.
Right. I just, talking about this reminded me of like a actually kind of transformative moment that was like when Hannibal Buress talked about Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Like everybody knew like that stuff had been going around for years, and like he just brought it up, and I mean he's I'm saying he's gonna kill me like we're best friends, but he's like everyone keeps asking me like that was one joke I said in the piece, and like people just forgot about it, and but it literally that is how like
It started,
everything started happening, and it was an offhand thing, and this was not new news, it was not a topical news. It was just unexpected, for him, particularly as a black male comedian, to come for Bill Cosby. And so then it, and that did, spark a transformative moment.
Yeah, that's great. It's like thinking of it as like kind of match.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
fire, right?
And it was not even like, it was like a 2-minute bit, and that's it. And
Yeah. So we have 10 minutes left, and I know I've gotten a couple of questions about the slap heard around the world. So I guess you're not going to be let off and not talking about what happened with the Oscars.
Talk about men.
I don't speak for men.
No, right.
I am here.
No, I guess I'll just phrase the question, what the question is, right?
Maybe it's a yes or no.
Yeah, maybe it's a yes or no.
Or a multiple choice.
The question is, and this is, there are versions of this question, so I'm just going to read one. What does the slap heard around the world at the Academy Awards represent in terms of comedy, race, and gender?
I think.
Yes.
I just want to say.
Rude question. Who asked this?
And look how they tied it back in.
Gender, age.
I think it's important to highlight that slap was just that. Like, it was those two people in that moment, and I don't like when I saw comments on Twitter was like, oh, now the Oscars is the BET Awards, or now they can't say the Oscars is so white anymore. And it's like, bad behavior doesn't represent a race or a people. It is just bad behavior. And what happened does not represent gender, race, or no. I mean, granted, he did it and he justified it based off of that. But I don't want that action to be characterized as a representation or speak to race, gender, or or any of that.
Right. I mean, I think
And comedy.
Yeah, I mean, the two takeaways I took from that, like, I don't think there's too much broader than, first of all, that everybody truly does hate Chris because ain't nobody come and check on him at all. Like, if I got slapped in the face and then you run over to comfort my slapper, you like, and then you give him an Oscar and give a standing ovation. Ooh, they hate that man.
Are we
People
telling
must hate
jokes?
him out. What?
Because if we telling jokes,
I always tell jokes. You're good. Stop coming for me. Silencing women on the panel. Anywho, women being silenced on the panel.
that's the question.
I'm answering the question if you'd let me speak.
Slap him.
You can get some Fresh Prince too, okay? Anywho,
Patty's taking a deep breath.
yeah, calm yourself. So that was the one takeaway, and the second takeaway that I think is, as I was saying, like, everything is about context. He did not slap Chris Rock because he's black. He did not slap Chris Rock because he's a man. He'd been wanting to, like, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but Jada Pinkett started Oscar So White, and then Chris Rock hosted back in 2016 and was talking stuff about her then, and that was the second joke of the night directed at them. I think he just had enough, and it was a situation like they're colleagues, right? Like if my Sue from HR, every time she starts a meeting talks about how I have a bald head, the third time that happens, I might run up on Sue. It might be enough. Especially if I got a couple drinks in me. Sue from HR might get a slap too. So I think it's all contextual.
Yeah, yeah.
My main reaction was, why is this being discussed so much? I mean,
Yeah.
somebody hit somebody. We learned in kindergarten and that was wrong.
Right.
And I think those are good explanations that, well, first of all, people just like to make a big thing about something. And it was dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was, whoa, I can't believe I never saw that happen. But then it was, so it happened,
Right.
I'm more interested in the dresses or something, but.
No, I think Frank Bruni published a piece in the Times that said that we should really be talking about Ginny Thomas, right? And and that the slap heard around the world is distracting us from the fact that this person who's married to a Supreme Court justice was in
But
cahoots
that's
with this.
showbiz.
Right, and it's showbiz, but I guess it might get us to think about how much sometimes, performance is like, what used to be called like the opium of the masses religion, but maybe Hollywood is a kind of religion, right? That gets us deviated away from things that we really should be talking about,
Yep.
that are more important. We have time for one more question, or maybe, so let me provide it. This has to do with a student comic last night making a point about how female stand-ups are received. She talked about trying material about something bad that had happened to her in a bombing because she felt the audience had too much empathy for her, something that doesn't affect male comics. Do you think that is true?
To speak for women, I think when it comes to jokes, that's real. It's like, how do you deliver a joke? Granted, I didn't see it, I didn't hear the joke, so I can't critique that specific joke. But when it comes
Go
to
ahead.
jokes, yeah,
He will anyway.
I didn't even see the slap.
Anyways. He wasn't even there.
I didn't even see the slap, but I want to talk about it. But no, I think to that it's there's a lot of factors in a joke. And the setup is like, you can let us know where you're at in that joke, like in the telling of what happened to you. You can let us know if you're over it or not, and then you deliver the joke. There's a lot. So pretext, how do you deliver it? Do you deliver it sad or stern, or I think there's a lot more that goes into a joke that is
Like about a personal topic, about something maybe traumatic. I think, because I feel like sometimes when if you're a comic of any stripe, but particularly a female topic, and you want to if you were assaulted or something like that, and you want to talk about it, I think you can kind of, when I've seen people do material like that, you can tell it, at least to me, if the person is over it or not. Mm-hmm. And so if I feel like you might break out and cry, then then I'm going to be more empathetic. I'm not going to be able to laugh because I'm going to want to give you a hug. Right. And so I think that that's not just, you can't talk about those things, but I think you have to have enough kind of distance from it, so that way you can be able to laugh at it. But I've seen things where I'm like, oh, you were about to have a breakdown. Like, oh, that is not funny. Like, that is sad. That is very sad. Like, I am so sorry to hear that. But I to her point about like, to speak for women, about sort of the gendered experience of that, I think is like, and that's part of the reason I don't really perform is I think the few times I did like do stand up and stuff, it's like, so much of it is like, oh, do I wear a dress? Like, how much boob do we show? Da 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 da. Like it, and not like, oh, like if I'm not showing boob and I want to tell jokes about sex, so they're gonna be like, that woman doesn't have sex. Like it's all these sort of weird things, like, or if I wear sexy things and I don't talk about sex, they're gonna be like, she should be talking about fucking. Look at her. So which is it? Which is it? So I think there's lots of gender things of perception that definitely go into how your jokes are received.
I think that particularly when you're a performer, you want to give the audience the permission to laugh. And you want to tell them, you're laughing with me, not at me. Mm-hmm. And maybe people are more sensitive to not being seen as laughing at a woman than they are a man. I don't know, because I'm not a performer and I'm not a man and barely a woman. So I don't know, but I was at that performance last night, and I thought it was a really interesting point that you don't want to laugh at a sad person. Then you're a bad, cruel person, and so. What we were saying, Jeff, maybe she didn't convey it right. That we weren't at that. We don't know how she delivered the joke, but you can only laugh if she lets us laugh, and she's reached a point where she laughs. Right.
Mm-hmm. So quickly, because we have 1 minute and 15 seconds. Who are your favorite comedians?
Oh, I hate that question.
That was not my question. It was
I hate any question that begins with favorite, because I think I'm going to get it wrong. My favorites are their favorites.
What? Patty, you can't do that.
We gonna say a favorite, and they're gonna get canceled.
My favorite is him.
No, my favorite is him.
We got some amazing people. I love Reggie Watts. I love. For me, my favorites are ones who are like do something different with the medium, shake it up. And I mean, I'm still a huge Hannibal Buress fan, because I felt like his style of comedy just felt like something I hadn't seen, particularly a black male performer do. And I feel like in class, Glenda, we talked about this, that I think, and Jeff, maybe you could speak to this, like as a black performer, I think there's a tradition of being like very physical, like hump the floor, swing the mic around your head, and so for him to just kind of get up there and be very deadpan, it's like was very refreshing, different. I'm like that some people who excite me. I like
8 seconds left.
Yeah. 8?
5.
Oh, 4. Oh shit.
Who's your favorite?
You have 3 seconds. Go.
What's yours?
They put 3 seconds back on the clock.
It's counting up now. If you want, now you counting up.
It's like sports, the sports
right?
clock.
You know sports.
Oh my God!
It's overtime.
Soccer now. It's counting up.
You got the 3.
My favorite comics are Seth Myers, Amber Ruffin, everyone who's ever employed me. My favorite, Eddie Murphy, Kevin Hart. Who's not canceled?
Richard Pryor is my favorite.
Pryor.
He's the OG for me.
He's dead.
I know.
Life canceled him. He's dead.
I reserve the right to change my opinion.
Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a great conversation.